so. Okay, so raise your hand if you have ever watched BoJack Horseman. Okay, that's actually quite a bit of you, and so I'm glad that this is not going to be like super alien to you guys. But I'm doing my presentation on one of the main characters called Diane Nguyen. She is a writer, and she has, her family history is from Vietnam. Her father was actually a tenured professor of like Vietnamese history or Vietnamese heritage or something like that. But basically, one really important thing about her is that she had a pretty shitty childhood, to be honest. When she was in like middle school or high school, she asked her dad, hey, I want to learn more about my Vietnamese heritage, because they lived in Boston, and so they didn't really live in Vietnam. And so she wanted to ask about that. And her dad said, that's my job. I wouldn't ask you to have a period on your day off. So that's just kind of gives you an idea of just how much of a, kind of shitty family she had. Her family would make her lose purposefully to her brothers at board games, so that her brothers would feel smarter than her. And I think the most heartbreaking part that I remember is the pen pal incident. So when she was in high school, she started writing letters to a pen pal called Leo. And Leo was actually her brothers. Her brothers were writing letters to her, pretending to be someone called Leo. And over the course of several months, she told him everything about her life. And this is just in general, the situation is really heartbreaking. But the fact that she was trying to express herself in a way that she wasn't able to do with the rest of her family. And she was trying to do that to someone that she confided in, and it turns out that was all a lie. But on her prom night, she invited Leo to her prom, and her brothers hired a homeless man to dress up as Leo and to embarrass her, basically. And that's her in the bottom picture on her prom night, just feeling really upset and embarrassed. I don't know, that situation is just incredibly cruel. But essentially, all of this leads to her fear and her inability to self-express and to express her trauma and her grief. And that is something that's shown throughout the show a lot, where she's trying to express to her husband or express to other people how she's feeling, and she just can't do it. And that's because she didn't really have the freedom to do that as a child. So at the moment, she's trying to write a memoir about her childhood. When she was a little girl, she told herself that she would write something like a memoir to make other girls like her feel less alone. And this is what we all try to do. We always try to make the most of our shitty situations that we have in our lives, and we always try to turn these negative experiences into something positive, especially for other people. But that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to write a memoir. However, she's on antidepressants and is feeling happier. The episode literally starts off with a montage of her solving problems and feeling happier with a happy song in the background. And she's built up the importance of the memoir in her head, and she feels she needs to do it like she owes it to her younger self. But the main issue here is that because of the antidepressants, or even just because of the time that has passed since her childhood, she can't access and therefore explore her damage. The whole episode, she's trying to write her memoir and trying to just type it because, she has a deadline from her publicist, and she just can't. And the art style is expressed through really messy and unclear scribbly thoughts. So you can see those pictures on the right, where she portrays herself as very scribbly, and you can see the quote, I wanted to write good things that were good, this is not good, fix this later. That kind of just expresses her trouble with trying to access her grief and trying to access all the things that she wants to write about in her memoir. And she's also worried and insecure that this damage of hers isn't interesting. Why am I writing a memoir about how much my life sucked? No one's gonna find that interesting. But, this is something unexpected that happens. While she's at the mall trying to write the memoir, she kind of gets lost in the sauce and starts writing a story about Ivy Tran, which is a cute story about a food court detective girl. The art style is expressed very, very vividly in contrast to the scribbly thoughts. And in general, the story is very lighthearted and fun. It's meant to be like a small short story about a girl who's a detective and solves like mysteries at the mall. And it's very much catered to little girls and little kids. But she expresses like genuine disappointment with the story because it's not what she wanted to write. She wanted to write a deep, gritty memoir about how tragic her life was. And here she is writing, in her words, a middle grade detective series. The story is expressed with extremely bright and vivid art, and it's very clear, as opposed to, the scribbliness and the unsure nature of the art that is expressed through her thoughts. She gets so desperate to make progress for her memoir that she abruptly quits her antidepressants. And that kind of ends up backfiring because obviously when you suddenly quit medication, that's not really a good thing, and it doesn't work, and instead she ends up having a panic attack over her inability to complete the memoir. So, near the end of the episode, her boyfriend makes an executive decision for her and sends her publicist the pages of the Ivy Tran detective story against her will. Diane is like super upset at her boyfriend for this because, obviously, I wanted to send my publicist the actual thing that I wanted to write, but she didn't do that. And this is where I want to just play a really quick clip from the show.
Princess Carolyn, wait. I understand. You're trying to be helpful in your own pushy, self-absorbed way.
Oh, thank you.
But I don't want to write a middle-grade fiction detective series.
I think you do, though, because when I was reading it, I could tell you were having fun.
Yeah, but I'm not writing a book to have fun. If I don't write my book of essays now, I never will.
So, don't write your book of essays.
I have to.
Why?
Because if I don't, that means that all the damage I got isn't good damage. It's just damage. I have gotten nothing out of it, and all those years I was miserable was for nothing. I could have been happy this whole time and written books about girl detectives and been cheerful and popular and had good parents. Is that what you're saying? What was it all for?
I don't know, Diane. All I know is that this book about the girl detective is fun. I liked it. I like thinking that my daughter could grow up in a world with books like that. Or if my daughter's not a reader, a lucrative film adaptation.
When I was a little girl, I thought that everything, all the abuse and neglect, it somehow made me special. And I decided that one day I would write something that would make little girls like me feel less alone. And if I can't write that book,
Then maybe write this other book. Maybe this book does that too.
yeah.
So this is where I want to get into the symbolic nature of kintsugi, and it's something that's mentioned in the episode. Diane compares herself to kintsugi. So for those who don't know, kintsugi is the Japanese art of repairing broken and shattered ceramic pieces, like bowls or vases, by using a resin mixed with gold powder. This way, the cracks in the vessel are obvious instead of concealed, and they represent the breaks to be a beautiful part of the object's history and highlight the beauty of imperfection. So this is, this is just a beautiful thing in general, but I just wanted to give some background on it because I'm going to touch more on it later as just in general a symbolic thing. But you can see some pictures of kintsugi up there, and that's why I have gold on my face. But a quote from that she says is, "So in a way, that salad bowl was me, and the cracks were also me." She compares herself to a salad bowl that is broken, and she wants to repair herself the same way that you do with kintsugi, with gold powder, and she basically wants to make the most of it and acknowledge that, all of the breaks in her past, they have made her who she is. They have made her a salad bowl. So I think that in our society and culture in general, there is a really big culture of putting our pain and our suffering on a pedestal like it exonerates you. So we have this really big culture of trying to outperform each other's sadness. How many of you have had a conversation that goes like, oh, well, you say something like, oh man, I had like 3 hours of homework to do last night, and I barely got any sleep. And then the person you're talking to or someone else chimes in and says, oh, well, I got 5 hours of homework last night and I've got like 3 finals coming up and I haven't slept in a week. And then someone else tries to, outperform that even more. We have this competition of who can have the most suffering and who can have the most unhealthy lifestyle. Our trauma and our despair, in a sense, exonerate us in our own minds, kind of like a sick and twisted self-righteousness. We view this pain that we feel as something that makes us better than other people, even though we don't like it. No one likes pain, but I mean, you can see this every day. So, for example, motivational speakers. So, we have in our society, we have a ton of like motivational speakers. And we pull them up on a pedestal, and it's like, look at these guys. And a lot of the time, these motivational speakers have gone through something really traumatic and have overcome it. That's why we're so allured and attracted to them, is they have gone through this adversity and they've overcome it and become better, and now they're trying to help others. It's a very natural and human thing. But at some point, we start conflating overcome with experience. So the strength to experience adversity. We start thinking that, the experience of hardship and adversity is what makes us special and not overcoming it. We also have just this deep romanticization of depression and mental health issues subtly. And that's why I included this picture of, it's a painting of Ivan the Terrible. But part of what makes the painting beautiful is the tragedy. It's the horror in the expression, it's the gore and the blood and just the terror over, Ivan the Terrible killing his own son. This is everywhere in our culture. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we do generally have this very big romanticization of suffering and tragedy. It's a very beautiful thing. We view it as like, it's a beautiful and terrible twisted part of life. We're so attracted to it. But I think another reason we think that, tragedy is beautiful is that we view joy as immature. If you think of children and little kids, a lot of the time, they are literally indicative of hope and of joy and happiness. They are literally the light of the future, stuff like that. And so quickly, we think that, joy is associated with children, which is associated with immaturity. And I think very quickly we start to think then, I suppose, maturity means suffering.
Thank you.
Huh?
Thank you.
But basically, we use kind of our suffering as like to gain like pity from others and social credit. And a lot of the times, we don't even like pity, but we still seek it out anyway. It's just kind of a twisted part of our nature in our society. And I experienced this myself with the Ice Bucket Challenge a couple weeks ago. So have you guys seen the USC Speak Your Mind Ice Bucket Challenge? Okay, for those of you who don't know, basically, it's supposed to be a challenge where you pour a bucket of ice water over your head to raise awareness for mental health. And basically, someone is supposed to nominate you, and then you have to do it within 24 hours, and then you have to nominate like 3 people. And I was seeing all my friends get nominated for the Ice Bucket Challenge and doing it, and I kind of felt left out, like, oh man, everyone here, they're being nominated, they have people around them who think about them and who care about them, and no one's nominating me, no one's thinking about me. And I just felt really depressed about that. And then someone actually did ask me if they could nominate me, and I kind of realized I don't really want to do the Ice Bucket Challenge. Like, I kind of felt like I was so comfortable, and I felt this sort of pride in my suffering, like, yeah, no one loves me, no one cares about me, no one even thinks about me, and that makes me feel kind of good, like I have the right to be upset. And I don't know, that was just a very weird feeling to experience, especially looking back on it now and realizing how, analyzing it more and realizing that it was kind of, not good. But quickly, our pain starts to define us. We naturally try to make the most of our bad experiences and turn them into something positive. And that's why the art of kintsugi is so alluring. All of us have imperfections, and we see a lot of the time in society, there's also this, oh, you have to be perfect, you have to get amazing grades. And when we fall short of those things, it's really beautiful and alluring when other people tell us that it's okay. It's okay to fall short. And it is okay. Like, I'm not saying that it's not. It is a beautiful thing. And the art of kintsugi does represent that incredibly beautifully. You break an object, and although the object is broken, you put it back together, and instead of concealing the cracks and trying to make it as it was before, you accentuate them. And it's a very philosophical art in general, especially in Japan. But that's just what we try to do naturally. We try to make the best of our negative experiences. If you recover from your trauma, what was it for? You could have been happy this whole time. If your cracks aren't made of gold and shown off, were they ever really there? And I think that that's kind of the biggest thing that Diane is struggling with, is she thinks that she desperately needs to put this salad bowl together with the gold, because the gold is what makes the salad bowl. She thinks that this pain defines her and it has made her who she is, but it is so vital and important to her as a character and her as a person. To her, you know, she thinks that it's super vital to her. And it's kind of a tragic fallacy to fall into. You know, you don't need kintsugi to feel kintsugi. You don't need to show off your pain, and you don't need to you know, inlay all your feelings and your trauma with gold for it to be valuable and for it to be meaningful to you. But that's that's the trap that Diane and I think a lot of people fall into, is they think that their pain defines them. Their pain is what makes them special, and then their pain is what makes them a person. Your beauty is expressed through you as a person, whether anyone knows what it took to make you that way. And your trauma does not make you you. I think a really good way to explain this is another situation that I ran into a couple weeks ago. Is I was doing this resume building workshop, and one of the things that the professor said is that all of the achievements from high school that were on my resume, and I had a huge resume, you know, obviously all of us, you know, we're here at Baylor, it's a good school. So all of these achievements that I had on my resume from high school, I was told, okay, you're gonna need to, you know, get rid of all these basically by the end of college, and you're gonna need to replace them with all new achievements. And initially I felt so heartbroken and upset by that, because, you know, all of these achievements and the things that I worked so hard for in high school, now no one's gonna know, you know, what was it for? Why did I put all the effort to, you know, to go to girls' state and to, you know, be a high position in ROTC and to do all of these things that I really love doing and that I felt so much passion for, if now they're just being erased and replaced with something that, you know, maybe I'm not gonna like as much. But I think recently I started to get a new perspective on that, is that those things and those achievements, although they're not going to be super visible and put on my resume, you know, they're not going to be written down in stone, they still helped me get to where I am. I have the opportunity to build a new resume at Baylor, and I wouldn't have that opportunity without my old resume and without my old achievements. Although my old things are not, you know, obvious anymore, they're the foundation. They're the stuff underground that are going to be the foundation to a hopefully big house that I'm going to build. That is my resume. But a salad bowl is a salad bowl whether it has cracks or not. And I think that that's the point of the kintsugi metaphor, is that Diane pictures herself as this salad bowl, and she puts herself back together with gold, and she thinks that the gold is what makes the salad bowl the salad bowl. She thinks that the kintsugi is what makes her special, and that's the whole thing. She's only seeing the kintsugi, but at the end of the day, the salad bowl is still a salad bowl. It serves a purpose, it has a function, and Diane is still a salad bowl. She isn't just the gold powder, she is all of it. And the gold powder is essential to her in her head, but at the end of the day, it's not all of her. And I think that's when we start to get into you define your pain and not your pain defines you. You don't lose yourself in healing. If you put yourself back together and no one knows, you know, how you did it or why you did it or even that you did it, that doesn't mean that you didn't do it. You as a person have still become the person that you are today because of all the minute things that have been in your past. So things like, it kind of reminds me of like the butterfly effect, I think, which is like one flap of a butterfly's wings in the past can, you know, drastically alter the future. And it's true when you apply it to other people, is, you know, even though you might not know, even though other people might not know that these flap of a butterfly's wings that happened in your life have changed you or have altered you, they still have altered you, and you understand that and you know that. And this is where I kind of want to get into the vivid versus the scribbly art analysis. I'm going to play the video.
There's a mystery. Why are you so sad for? I don't know. Just be fun and popular like me. I don't know how. Sure you do. I'm clever and free-spirited and a little bit sardonic, but not so much that it's off-putting. I have vulnerabilities like everybody else, but just enough to make me relatable. That's the way to be. It's not that easy. Yeah, I know. But wouldn't it be nice if it was?
I'm going to rewind so, oh shoot. But if you see the comparison of, her thoughts expressed in the scribbly and also the vivid way, these both represent Diane. Although her recollection of her past and her ability to unpack her past trauma is messy and is unorganized, and this new story is vivid, both of these interpretations are still her. She still created Ivy Tran, and although it isn't what she wanted to create initially, it can still serve the purpose that she wanted it to. Positivity breeds positivity. And so I think that the episode ending off with her actually agreeing and wanting to write the story of Ivy Tran is incredibly beautiful, because I feel like the memoir, although it might have served its purpose in, making other people feel less alone, I think that writing something positive can also do that and can do that better. I guess positivity is very cliche, and it's like, oh yeah, just be positive and whatever. But it really is, positivity really is something that is incredibly nurturing and beautiful. And you want to surround yourself with positive people. When you're a little, imagine you're a little girl like Diane, and you're going through a tough time in your childhood. Do you want to read a story about, another person who went through the same thing? I mean, maybe you do, and maybe that'll comfort you, but at the end of the day, I think that another maybe better or equivalent piece of comfort is reading a story about something positive and something that makes you a little bit happier, because, your pain isn't everything. That little girl reading that story is going to think that pain is all that she is, but if she reads something positive, maybe it'll get her mind off of things. Maybe she'll start thinking that she's worth a little bit more than just the damage that she's gone through. At the end of the day, our damage does shape us, but it does not define us. If we put ourselves together, if we visualize ourselves with as salad bowls with kintsugi, at the end of the day, we're still salad bowls, and we can't think that, our kintsugi makes us better than everyone else or makes us better than an unbroken bowl. I don't really think any of us are unbroken bowls, but, you put your own value on your damage and you give it meaning, not the other way around. So I think that what I'm saying is you should look to define your own damage in a sense that, in a way that that it doesn't define you and that it isn't all you have, but understand that it does shape you, but it isn't you. You are more than that. You as a person are more than just all the shitty things you've gone through. And you give that damage meaning, and that's important. And then I think I want to end the presentation off with a quote that kind of summarizes this whole thing very, very well. Just very well, I think. All right, that's me.
Very nice. Whereas my ex once said, life's a bitch, then you marry one. She's not my stepsister.
Thank you for listening. Hopefully I did well.
The gold hill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I was going to talk about
you
it.
explain that.
Yeah.
Walk
so,
around and let everybody see that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, basically the gold on my face and the kintsugi doesn't define me. Like, I'm still me as a person, whether I have gold on my face or not, or whether I have, glitter eyeliner on my face or not. This doesn't make me a person. And although you can see